this is Stuff You Like, you can call me Ursa, and while we're technically talking about The Empire Strikes Back, we're mostly at the moment talking about Attack of the Clones, but we will get there, I promise. So, Anakin, Attack of the Clones, Darth Creeper. Why is this a problem? It's a problem because to sell a love story, you have to give us a compelling reason that these two characters might fall in love. Anakin had a childhood crush on Padme, and he has been nurturing that for 10 years. It is quite natural for someone with so little experience of the outside world to idolize a woman he barely knew. But Padme, I don't see in their interactions any compelling reason for Padme to love Anakin. Look, I've been reading a crap ton of Star Wars meta in preparation for this episode, and while it did make me feel more sorry for Anakin, it didn't give me any clues as to why Padme would fall in love with a 19-year-old who's... yeah.
She covered the cameras. I don't think she liked me watching her.
Especially because their initial interaction in the movie goes something like this. I haven't seen Padme in 10 years, and so I will start by awkwardly trying to compliment her and then arguing with my master in front of her. I will make her so uncomfortable, again, that a woman in fear for her life covers the cameras in her room.
I don't think she liked me watching her.
No, I will not leave that clip alone. And then he's her bodyguard, again, alone, and he makes her uncomfortable by staring. Then they have a not exactly fun or interesting conversation, but it's not actively creepy, I guess, and the fact that it's not interesting is more down to the writing than their interaction. Then he interrupts her in front of the Queen. Manners, Anakin. Awkward, Anakin. Padme, as someone who desperately wants to fix Anakin, I could maybe buy, but these interactions make me twitchy. I really liked Attack of the Clones when it first came out, but it wasn't because of the love story, it was mostly because of the adventures of Obi-Wan Kenobi and his mullet, and also because Padme gets just the most amazing outfits. I understand the idea that their romance is doomed from the get-go, but she's 24 years old and she has been a politician for 10 years now. Putting up with that level of creepitude in her romantic life feels off, especially when the film tries to imply that it's not creepy. Look, Anakin, you are going to be guarding her, alone with her, spending time with her. She is going to have to totally rely on you in situations where her life is threatened. You very much do not want her thinking, actually, I'm feeling threatened right now. And that whole, actually, I'm feeling threatened right now is exactly the vibe I am getting from Anakin in some of these situations, which means that it colours all of their other conversations. I mean, the writing for the we're totally falling in love scenes isn't exactly inspired, but I could have got behind it a bit more if it weren't for those weird red flag interactions that just keep happening. Maybe his flirting is meant to warn us of his growing sense of rebellion against the Jedi Order and his selfish need to have what he wants and damn the consequences, but that's not very romantic, and it's sort of framed as romantic with the sweeping John Williams soundtrack, although by the end of some scenes even the soundtrack isn't quite so sure. And that lack of clarity is another writing issue. What sort of love story is this? It feels too awkward and too tentative to be the grand sweeping passion the writing leads us to believe it's supposed to be. The sand scene, for example, is really hella awkward and not in a barely restrained passion, is it hot in here or is it just them kind of way. No, in a sort of jerky pawing motions kind of way. If you want to see how to do chemistry right with barely any touching at all, then really what you need are some of the better period dramas. I mean, Colin Firth and his stares of repressed British longing are always a thing, but the 2005 Pride and Prejudice with former Star Wars Queen Keira Knightley is an amazing example of how you do chemistry with barely any touching at all. Because they hardly touch the entire movie, but when they do, you get the impression that they are desperately restraining themselves from doing something highly inappropriate. Even when they're fighting down their deep loathing for each other. Fighting down a grand passion which your respective positions make impossible. That's how you do it. By contrast, the dominatrix dress scene, because clearly Anakin isn't the only one with a thing for faux leather, is just uncomfortable. And this is what I mean about the chemistry. Because Anakin looks intense to the point of creepy again. Frustrated and a little bit angry and creepy. This would be okay, this would be much less creepy if it were matched by equal intensity from Padme, but it's not. And watching it makes me so uncomfortable because look at their body language. Padme in this scene keeps moving away from Anakin, shifting back, standing up. In this dimly lit room while completely alone, this kind of mismatched intensity is intensely out of place. The words and the costume and the score are trying to imply that she is desperately tempted, but because she is clearer headed than Anakin, she will not let him throw away his future. But the body language says, back off, I am uncomfortable. It does somewhat improve in Revenge of the Sith, but scenes where they are physically close and touching are generally really dark and close up, so you can't really see it. And scenes where they are being verbally sweet and shiz, they are physically distant. And again, the being verbally sweet isn't really that good because writing. In addition, scenes where they could be touching, they aren't. Which, given that it's meant to be a great passionate doomed affair, feels off, because even if you think that your great passionate affair is doomed, you'd try touching, wouldn't you? You'd try to reconnect, and there's some of that, but there's just not enough. Perhaps this is a sign that you have fallen out of love, but the script does not imply that that is what it is, and so it feels really confused. There is this terrible mismatch between what the script is implying and what the body language of the actors and their positioning is implying. The messages are just too mixed for me to get behind, basically. Is this a great doomed romance where they are terrible for each other but can't keep their hands to themselves? And if it's meant to be a grand romance that becomes a terrible tragedy, then I can't get behind that because I don't believe in the grand romance in the first place. Even when they're declaring their love for each other, it's just such an inappropriate kiss for the situation. Because when your true love and possibly you are about to die, or at the very least you're never going to see him again, I'd expect a little more intensity. And we're back to Han and Leia. Phew, okay. Han is played as a world-weary scoundrel with thousands of parsecs under his belt. Wait, that sounds wrong. Never mind. He's played as a man who's been around the block a few times. His way with women is, well, seeing as the EU has been purged, his main interactions with a woman in official canon now mostly revolve around yelling. At least until we get to this scene, but we'll come back. And as I said on Tumblr, my favourite parts of this scene are how they've done this so often that they can let people walk through the middle of their arguments without breaking stride, and just how unconcerned that extra and all of the other extras are about walking right between General Solo and Princess Leia, leader of the rebellion, who are having an argument about whether or not she fancies him. So yeah, we have Han, who is an ordinary dude scraping by and trying not to get killed, who's secretly kind of heroic, though he gets mad when people find this out. And then we have Leia, who couldn't be more different. Background-wise, she's a princess and a senator and a leader. She is someone whose service to her people and her planet have consumed her life, even when her people and her planet don't exist anymore. Someone who's been through torture, someone who was hours from death when she got broken out of prison. But while she's a natural leader, she's really bad at dealing with her own feelings. And when you get right down to it, she's a teenager, albeit one who had to grow up too fast. She's the same age as Anakin in Attack of the Clones, but I think she's probably doing a little bit better emotionally. Maybe. Han and Leia are two people pulled in different directions. Han is trying to figure out whether or not he's a hero, and Leia is trying to deal with being in charge. She's a reluctant teenager trying to deal with feelings at a time when feelings are inconvenient because, you know, the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance, ma. It's not that Leia doesn't like Han, it's just that she has her own shiz to deal with, and she quite understandably nopes right on out of there when she hears his stated intention to leave. Anakin and Padme are held apart by politics and the Jedi way of doing things, but their movie interactions are generally so stiff and stilted and wordy that I have trouble believing it. Leia gets worked up at Han because she cares and because all of that passion has to go somewhere. Padme doesn't. And while I'm not saying that she has to, when she mostly sounds calm and rational, again, the headlong dive into a really boring kiss doesn't ring terribly true. Before they actually manage to get it together, Han and Leia's body language, all of the touching that they do, all of the touching that they don't do, everything plays into this dynamic. He's impressed, but wow, totally not even going there. Okay, well, maybe. She's tempted and yet completely not going there on account of unreliability being a good way to get yourself killed in a universe that most sincerely wants you dead. A universe where we have no time for our sorrows over the achingly recent genocide of most of the people we've ever loved, Commander, because we've got to blow up a Death Star. But then Han goes and does something heroic and it's like, oh, I think I like him. Maybe a lot. Crap. Which seems like a good place to pause, and so we'll come back to Han and Leia and their body language in part 3.